Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn Live. I am flying solo today, but glad to be here with all of you. Just checking. I've got you live in the Facebook group. So here we are, good to go. Let me check. Give me a shout out. Say hello if you are watching today. We've got an important conversation. This is one that comes up a lot in our practice, and it is all about testing. So thank you to all of you who are in our private Facebook community who we had asked you what are some of the things that you wanted to hear about, and this was an important topic. So for those of you who missed the last couple of weeks when we did our session on cortisol and adrenals, you want to go check out those sessions that were in the series because they are important. So go back into the history. You can find, if you find our South Bay Wellness on YouTube, you'll find all of our Lunch and Learn videos on there. I believe some of them expire if you're watching on Facebook or so on and so forth, but do check out those ones there. So let's talk about testing because this is a conversation that comes up a lot. And I've got to say, there's certainly some benefit to social media and all the information that comes out there. But I think it has left us in a world where we think that all the information that we need is outside of us and not within us. That's number one. But number two, where we feel like we need every single thing because people are marketing all of these different things. So how many of you have ever felt maybe like pressured when you've seen a practitioner and then they've been like, you need to spend $3,000 in testing before we even begin our work together? And it leaves you in a place where you're feeling torn because yes, you want answers, you want to feel better, but you also don't want to throw your money away. So if you can relate to that, give me a comment in the comment section because I see that so often. I had dinner with a friend of mine not too long ago, and she knows what I do, but doesn't really know what it is that I do in my practice. And she was sharing about, she had met this person at a retreat. It was a functional medicine practitioner, and she started working with a functional medicine practitioner. It was literally thousands of dollars in blood work before she would even get started. And this is what we are seeing throughout the functional medicine space. The truth is, I do believe that functional medicine itself has become a little bit bloated. A lot of practitioners are using tests as their way into sort of their marketing funnels for transparency. And that's not something that I have ever personally subscribed to. So I'm going to share with you today, and definitely put your questions in because I know this was one that people asked. I want to share with you today sort of what my perspective is on all the testing that's out there and so on and so forth. So the truth is, you guys, testing is an investment, and sometimes it's needed and sometimes it's not. So my stance is this: before you spend a dime on expensive testing, I'd rather you take those funds. I mean, unless you've got funds to just kind of like throw away. And some people do, right? I know for some people it's not an issue. But what I'd rather see you do is upgrade your diet, right? Optimize your lifestyle. Get on the right supplementation that your body needs because those are actually the foundations. Okay. Because I know after doing this for almost 20 years that the minute you start doing those things and doing them in the right order, getting the process down, and I know sometimes that takes help. That's why our clients work with us here at South Bay Wellness. But once you get that down, all of those labs, they're going to change, right? The results for those labs are going to change. So you've still got to address the foundations. And I know a lot of times it's nice. It's nice to see your cholesterol go from a high to low. It's nice to see your C-reactive protein, right, which is an inflammatory marker, go from high to low, right? But if you haven't first addressed those three things, it's kind of like throwing money out the window, no pun intended. And if you've got it, great. If you don't, then let's work to use those funds to actually improve where you want to be with your health. So once the foundations are in place, and then we see that we need more answers in a specific direction, that's when testing actually becomes powerful and worth it. So I'm going to break down for you guys today. I want to talk about the different kinds of testing that we use in our practice, when it's worth it, when it's not, what you can expect in terms of cost. And this way you'll know sort of exactly where it is that you need to start and what might be beneficial for you. Does that sound good? Give me a thumbs up if that works for you. Just say hi and yes in the comments section. That way I know that you're all watching. So let's dive into the different tests, right? And for those of you who are just joining in, like you want to catch up. So what I've been talking about is, testing. Whether or not it's actually worth spending the hundreds or thousands of dollars on different tests. And what I've said, and I'm going to stand behind this and I'll repeat it again, is you want to upgrade your diet. You want to optimize your lifestyle. You want to get on the right supplementation before even going down that route in most cases. So I want to start with the basics. And a lot of times we'll have clients come into our practice and our programs, and they've seen all the stuff on social media from all the different functional medicine practitioners and all the different labs that are out there. They're like shiny objects, you guys. They're totally like shiny objects. And like I said, a lot of practitioners will have you spend thousands of dollars before they even begin working with you to get all of that labs and all of that information. But oftentimes I find in my practice that just starting with the core labs, like a CBC, your regular blood work, right? The CBC, the metabolic panel, those give us a lot of information. Of course, if you're having thyroid issues or you're suspecting thyroid issues, having a full thyroid panel is also key and critical. But just the information from that test alone is important. You see, most doctors are having you run this every year, right? The problem is they only look for what's sort of outside the normal range. And so they're never actually looking at the trend. So that's why you've probably heard, hey, I know you're tired and exhausted, but your labs here, they look fine. And then your body's screaming, but it's not fine, but it's not fine. So when we look at those same labs through a functional medicine lens, there's so much more that we see, right? We can look for nutrient deficiencies. We can look for early inflammation. We can look for thyroid issues before it becomes thyroid disease. We can look for immune imbalances. We can look for stress patterns in the body. So there's actually a lot of information in that basic test. And if we looked at trends, where things are going, that too gives us a lot of foundational information. So just your basic CBC and your metabolic panel can be an excellent place to start without having to invest a whole lot of funds. And we do that a lot. We have our clients send in their blood work when they get it. If you are not a client of South Bay Wellness and you're like, okay, well, I need different eyes on my blood work. I need to see what else is going on here that I'm not seeing. So for our clients, we always review blood work together, right? It's part of the service that we provide. If you're not a client of South Bay Wellness, then we do offer a blood work review. That blood work review, which allows us to look at your blood work and then, looking at it and from a functional perspective, as well as a 30-minute consultation where we kind of map out for you some of your next steps. That is a $250 investment. So if you're needing that, just message us and we'll get you on our calendar and set you up for that. So that's a $250 investment for the lab review. But this alone, you guys, can be more valuable. That CBC, that metabolic panel, that thyroid panel can be more valuable than actually running thousands of dollars in specialized testing because it gives us a clear foundation. Okay. So now there's other specialty testing and there are times and places where we use it. So let's talk about some of the bigger, more specialized tests that you may or may not have heard the names of. And these are the ones that you hear people talking about online. So let's talk about when they can be valuable. What's the right time? Okay. So a big one that I often see come up is the stool test, right? So the GI map, which is a stool test, is one that is, often mentioned in the functional medicine world. And that test can run anywhere from about $400 to $600. And typically it's there to help deal with potential issues of the GI system that maybe haven't been picked up. So maybe you're dealing with chronic bloating, or you're dealing with IBS, or you're dealing with constipation or diarrhea, or, stubborn weight issues. What the GI map shows us is it shows us your microbiome health, right? It shows us what are the different pathogens that are prevalent in your GI system. How is your digestion working? It gives us some markers for how nutrients are being absorbed. And it helps in some cases where obviously, blood work can't explain all the different caveats of what's happening in the GI system. Again, though, you guys, before I ever suggest that my clients invest $600 on a GI map, for example, let's work on getting your GI into balance the best we can with the resources that we have through your diet, your lifestyle, your supplementation, because we can move the dial significantly in order to do that, so that you're not experiencing the IBS or the bloating or the chronic stomach pain or those different things. So that is one thing and take a look at. Another one that's pretty big is food sensitivity testing. And food sensitivity testing is really great when you feel like you're having all these random symptoms and these different reactions to things. It helps when you've got, unexplained gut inflammation, or you've got skin issues, or you've got chronic fatigue, or you've got mystery symptoms, or you're doing all the other things, right? All the other things, the diet, the lifestyle, the supplementation, and still not getting 100% where you want to be. And food sensitivity testing varies in terms of investment based upon how many different things are being tested. So typically those tests can run anywhere from like $200 to $500 a test. So it does help to identify, foods that are driving the immune response, but it has to be integrated with that bigger nutrition plan, right? Otherwise you end up chasing foods instead of fixing your system itself. Okay. So that's when I would look at using food sensitivity testing. Now, one caveat that I would say that is really important to know and understand is just because a result comes out on a food sensitivity test at one point in time doesn't mean that you are bound to that for the rest of your life. I have seen these tests change, and they should change. A lot of times when your GI system is out of balance, or there's things like leaky gut, you are going to end up with a larger plethora of things that your body is sensitive or reactive to. But again, the underlying root cause isn't just that food or those foods, it's what's been happening underneath that's creating that inflammation in the GI. So your GI system, everything should be nice and like shingles on a roof, all patched up, sealed, really nice and tight. And what happens over time from your diet, from your lifestyle, from environmental toxins, that, those tight shingles begin to come loose, and all of a sudden, the rain is now dripping into your living room because the shingles are loose. It's the same thing within your GI system. So you should eat food. It should stay within your GI system, travel only from mouth to anus. But if you've got inflammation and things start leaking through, now your immune system gets pretty fired up. And food sensitivities aren't just necessarily a reaction to food themselves, but believe it or not, you could become sensitive to something as a result of something emotional as well. So take, for example, let's imagine that you're eating popcorn and you're watching a really scary movie, and your body registers that fear and that emotion. Well, if it connects the two together, like popcorn, fear together, then you're going to have a response. So there's multi-layers to the food sensitivity. So we use them in our practice in cases where all of these different things haven't been resolved through your lifestyle and your nutrition and your dietary habits. But 9 out of 10 times, I'll tell you guys, so in our programs, especially our Peak Lifestyle program, what happens is we're going through a detoxification process. We're clearing out all of those things that are major major causes of inflammation in the GI system, and then we're healing the gut. So by the time we get later on down the road, number one, you already know what some of those things are that you're sensitive to. But number two, that gut is in a healthier place so that you're not having these consistent flares. So again, time and a place for food sensitivity testing. Is it valuable information? Like, can you do it? Absolutely. It just matters of whether or not you're wanting to make that investment and whether that investment is more valuable to you than actually working on healing your GI system. So another test that we use often in our practice would be toxicity testing. And the toxicity testing, that we do, I mean, it can run depending on what we're testing for. Are we testing for mold? Are we testing for metals? What are we testing for? It can run anywhere from $300 to $700 for that testing. And again, it's testing in our practice that we used when, maybe you've tried everything, but you're still struggling with fatigue or brain fog or resistant weight loss or unexplained illnesses, right? Because it helps us take a look at, is there a heavy metal burden? Is there mold exposure? Are there chemical toxicities in the body that are preventing the body from working? So you guys have heard me before talk about that rain barrel analogy, right? So you've got that rain barrel. Your body's like a rain barrel. Toxins fill up in that rain barrel. And if the drainage spout is clogged up, if you're not detoxifying at the rate that barrel is accumulating, it eventually overflows. And that overflow is what I call symptoms. It's what we feel and experience. So in many cases, toxicity testing helps us to actually see what is keeping that barrel from draining, what is keeping your body stuck. So that's one that we use in our practice. Now, you guys, again, a lot of times when we're going through with our clients detoxification processes and we're healing the body and we're using quantum reflex analysis, which is a very special kinesiologic modality, unlike any of the others that are out there, quite frankly, that allows us to actually see these things without having to invest the $300 to $700, for example, in a toxicity test. So I want to talk about that just a little bit too, so that you're familiar with it. So what we do with quantum reflex analysis in our practice with QRA is we're able to look at the different organs, glands, and systems in the body. This is part of a service that we provide for our clients. There's no additional charge outside of our programs for this kind of testing. And I honestly believe that it is the most powerful, immediate tool that we use in-house, because it's non-invasive, it's hands-on, it allows us to directly stress the different organs, glands, and systems in the body to find those hidden blockages that even regular labs don't get. I always say QRA helps us identify things before they even show up in like your normal blood work. It also helps us to tailor specific protocols. Like, what exactly does your body need? Because, hey, you can take the GI system. You've all probably heard that probiotics are the best way to go, but probiotics aren't always what somebody's GI system needs to heal, right? Fiber isn't always just what somebody's system needs if they're having constipation. Okay. So for us, it's kind of like what I call our energy eyes. We want to know what resonates with the body, what doesn't resonate with the body, so that we can understand exactly what it is that the body needs. So if you're not a client of ours, one of the things that we do is we put together very specifically tailored supplement protocols for our clients that are based on exactly what it is that your body needs. There's no guesswork. There's no guesswork in there. But you guys, all of these different methods of testing each have their own place and each have their own value. So I know if you have questions, drop them into the questions. I'll make sure that I got your questions answered. We did start a couple minutes late, so I'll stay on for a couple extra minutes here. But I want to share with you again, especially if you just joined in, here's my philosophy when it comes to testing, really, here's my philosophy when it comes to anything. And I'll sum it up in one sentence, right? Don't start with the shiny new test. Start with the basics. we test strategically when symptoms aren't resolving, when deeper answers are needed, or when personalization is really critical. That way, you're saving time, you're saving money, you're saving your frustration, and you know you're investing in answers that actually move the needle. Now, I know for some people, they're like, well, I need to see that there is this toxicity or that there is this food sensitivity before I, work on clearing heavy metals or work on cleaning out the mold in my system or avoid a specific food in my diet. And if you're one of those people, that's okay. And we do have clients who are in that space. They're like, well, I want to see it. But you have to understand as well that there is, you've got to have to invest in those different labs in order to do that. So it just becomes a matter of choosing what it is that works best for you and deciding then what it is that your body needs. Okay. Any questions on that? So you guys who have I know a couple of you have just joined in. We're talking about testing, when to test, what some of the popular tests are. And again, shiny objects are not always the best thing. Remember that a test is there to give you an idea. It's not actually going to solve the underlying root cause of why the problem is there to begin with. Okay. So if you're having we didn't even talk about the Dutch test, but the Dutch test is another one that we'll often use in our practice because it allows us to start to look at different hormone levels. And I always tell people too, with regard to the Dutch test, that if you're coming in and you're having menopausal symptoms, you're really stressed out, you're having hot flashes, you're waking up in the middle of the night, you can't sleep, then we already know that your hormones are out of balance. So I like to say, depending on where you are, you can either invest. So that testing can run anywhere from $300 to $700. So we can either run those tests and have it give us those specific imbalances, where stuff is occurring, what your cortisol rhythm is, what your sex hormone breakdown is, how well your body's detoxifying hormones, which is all important information, right? But in order to receive that information, it is that $300 to $700 investment. On the flip side of that, if we know that you're stressed out, if we know that you're under eating or you're over exercising, if we know that you're not sleeping at night, right? If we know that you're not fueling your body properly, then we already know your hormones out of balance. So if we're taking a conservative approach, then we go in and we address your diet, your lifestyle, right? Your nutrition, your lifestyle habits, right? Your sleep, before we go in and even have to make that investment in all that testing. Because either way, we're going to do those things, right? Either way, whether your Dutch test says that your progesterone, your estrogen and your cortisol are out of balance or not, we still have to go in and address those things in order for you to get relieved from those symptoms. Does that make sense? So I'm hoping it makes sense, you guys. So be careful of shiny new objects and always think about going back to the basics and understanding. And again, I love what we do in terms of the kinesiologic testing and QRA because it takes the guesswork out of everything. I don't have to guess what somebody needs. I don't have to have them spend thousands of dollars into what is happening because the information is right there. So you save your time, your money, your frustration, all of that. So you guys, if you're sitting here and you're thinking, okay, but where do I start? What do I do? The simplest way for you to start would be for a blood work review. So if you have basic blood work, your CBC and your metabolic panel, and you want us to review that, then we'll do that, right? It's a $250 investment. You'll send us over your labs. We'll review your labs. We'll spend some time with you, or I'll spend some time with you mapping out what your next best steps are. Sometimes though, I'll be honest with you, even that's not enough. Sometimes it helps us point to, okay, maybe we need to dive in a little bit deeper to other things. So if you're already a client, don't worry. We're always monitoring whether or not, what testing and stuff makes sense for you. But if you need to schedule a blood work review, just message us. We'll schedule that in. We'll walk through your labs together. We'll make sure you're not wasting time or money, but instead actually making a smart investment in your health. Because I think that is where we should go. So, all right, everybody, here's what I want you to remember. Quick takeaway, right? Testing is a tool. It's not the answer. It also is not going to give you the underlying root cause in many cases, right? So And underlying, knowing that you have high toxicity levels, by the way, isn't just enough to know why your body isn't effectively detoxifying. So there's multiple different pieces that have to come together in your programs, right? And healing begins with the foundations, right? And the right test at the right time can actually help us get there faster. But nothing will ever replace those basics of your diet, your nutrition, your lifestyle habits, your sleep, your hydration, your supplementation. Those are the key foundational places to start. All right, everyone, that is it for today's Lunch and Learn Live. If you have questions, drop them in whatever channel you're watching this on. We'll find them and we'll get your questions answered. And if you need to reach out, you can email me directly, Danielle at southbaywellness.com, DANIELLE at southbaywellness.com, or you can message the office at front office at southbaywellness.com. All right, everyone, have a fantastic week. Carissa and I will see you on, oh, wait a second. Hold on. Monday is a holiday. We won't see you on Monday. We will see you in 2 weeks from today. So see you then, everyone.